my clients is in here. We love Jackie. I love you guys too. Little crazy shitheads.
Do you ever go live?
Not really. Honestly, it's like once in a blue moon. So I mean it's midday, so hopefully, people will join. But I'm glad that we can make it work. I know we've had this is I guess I was like, this is the to the point of what we're talking about today, right? Because having to shuffle and like figure out, we have an event tonight for one of the brands that I run. So things with that got shifted. And so now we're here.
Right.
But that's like kind of the music industry, and even the fashion industry in a nutshell is always having to be on your toes and be willing to pivot.
Yes. And I appreciate you for making this pivot and making time. Yes, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful.
Yeah. I literally could hear when I canceled. I was like, I could hear it in her voice. I'm like, I can't even. I'm like, let's make it happen. I was like, she sounds.
You could
so
hear.
sad.
I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I was like, because like when you called me, it was 10 a.m. my time, and so I am like posting last week's, I'm uploading it to YouTube. I'm like writing the blog, getting ready to send the newsletter. Cause as I promote, last week's episode being uploaded, I also want to promote like this week's episode so people can come join. So yeah, I was definitely, when I don't know what to say, I'm just like,
Yeah, I'm weak.
But yeah, so I mean, everybody knows you. This is your live, so
yeah. No,
So,
well, I mean, with the joint live though, it shows to your audience too, so we're good.
yeah.
Just share it to some people, get them to join. Okay, the brand is out of control and I know who's running that right now. But let's dive into it. I know there's like a few different segments and everything that we wanted to get through. So wherever you want to start, I'm here.
Perfect. So just to give quick, brief introductions, I'm Jazzmyne Kierra. My background is in artist management. I have 7 years of artist management experience under my belt, working for corporate artist management companies like Taylor Gang and Live Nation, Style & Co, Maverick, and then I started my own company. And then Jackie, if you want to do your quick introduction, we can jump into the first topic after that.
Yeah, similar to that, have experience over the last 10 years in artist management as well as brand management as more recently, but I've kind of always been somewhere in between fashion, like streetwear realm and music, and they end up tying in quite nicely. Artists always want to obviously sell merch, but then also on top of that, have a brand and ultimately like create another stream of revenue for themselves. So that is something that from that side of things is what I'm passionate about, is being able to just help creatives in general, build businesses. And one of my clients is right there in the comments again too. Hey, highlight. But yeah, just, being able to help expand and grow and have things that live beyond you, right? The idea is to create something bigger than yourself. And thankfully I work with a lot of really dope creatives and individuals. Highlight, who's the owner of the brand Holy Center that I'm brand manager for, and also had our operations, working with people just like him who have a vision and want to execute things and take it to the next level. When we met, he had a bubbling like brand, and we came in like last year. We've been working together a little over a year now, which is weird because it feels like longer than that, but really scaling it, and my background came from working with artists. I lived in LA for 6 years. First artist I worked with was T-Pain. And that was an awesome experience. And we circled back and I did some consulting with him a couple years ago, and still have a great relationship with his team. His manager and I talk quite often. And then YG, I worked with him for about 2.5 years, almost 3, helping his creative director initially launch his agency and brand. His brand is called Supervision. No, his creative director first. Okay. We started there. And so he had a vision, which the brand's called Supervision.
Mm.
And he has scaled that now. I mean, the brand's going crazy. I don't know if, I mean, in LA they have a store now in Leimert Park, and he's just taken a lot of great ideas, and built them out. And we ultimately, through that, he was doing all of YG's brand at the time, 400, and so I kind of jumped in once the brand was about, I want to say like 3.5 years old when I joined. It kind of was one of those things that it was bubbling, and people, I mean, he says 400 all the time. So it
Right.
just made sense for him to call his brand that. And then, the distinct space was growing that brand as the Here This Can Live beyond YG and his music
Right.
career. And it's going into high end retailers and all different level retailers, truly, but it sits separate from the merch. So he never specifically put his face on it, any of those things,
Yeah.
which helped him to scale it significantly and just open more doors, because that's really have to differentiate what's merch and then what's my brand,
Yeah.
because one could potentially, go even become bigger than your career.
Right.
Brands grow at like a rapid pace, but if you
Yeah.
limit yourself to merch, then you're just thinking like people that might discover your music or, you know, come to your shows and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think branding is super important to talk about, especially brand development, because if you think of like the billionaires, the big, big music artists, it wasn't because of their music. Like their music might have helped them get popularity, but Fenty Beauty, Savage X Fenty, that those brands have helped make Rihanna a mogul. Ariana Grande selling like her cloud perfumes, her makeup, that has helped her become mogul. I mean, of course she was a pop icon,
yeah,
but so was Britney
right.
Spears. And we don't, you know what I'm saying? Like so many of the early 2000 pop icons and stuff, they tried it. You know, J-Lo tried to have like her little glow, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
everybody had a fragrance, everybody had a fashion line, but the difference was like their branding. You know, the it's just like the importance of brand development. And like you said, building a brand that is beyond yourself, that doesn't have to have your face on it or you in every commercial to make a sale, or it doesn't have to be around your music to where the point where it's like, oh yeah, I mean, if I want a concert t-shirt, I'll just buy that on tour or I'll buy the merch from their website. It's like, no, this is its own entity that lives
right.
beyond,
Yeah,
you know? So
yeah,
that, perfect segue into our first topic, which is the importance of brand development.
yeah.
So I would love for you to discuss just like the role of branding when it comes to like building audience connection and loyalty and recognition.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's a lot to,
It's a lot. I can break it down to
to
one at a time.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, I can try to encompass, we'll tackle that. I think ultimately it comes to, you can look at it the same that you look at your music, almost in the sense of, if you're writing a song, what's the point of what you're trying to get across in that
Yeah.
song? And then you're taking that, what's the cover art? How do I want to market this? How do I want to do the things? It's like the same with at least the birthing process of a brand is, what's my overall vision? Who are my people? And then like, how am I going to get there to them? And I think everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
Essentially it comes at, you could have somebody like, for example, obviously who I've worked with, like a YG, whose brand is very West Coast. It's
Hmm.
very, him, it's stuff he would wear. I think ultimately that's one of the best things too in general is, what do you like? A lot
Right.
of like, you see Gabby in the comments too. She's the co-owner of one of the brands that I help run, and a lot of, for both of them, Holy Center and Tainted Angel, it's, I want to replace my wardrobe. Like, I want something that's comfortable that I like, so that now you're finding the people that are like you,
Yeah.
and trying to expand outside of that. So I think it's hard to discuss about certain things. I think community overall is something that is generally like one of the most important things. So defining that and understanding who your people are, what they want, And
Mm.
that takes trial and error, right? It's like you have to be willing to like fail a lot. The general entrepreneurship rule anyways is most companies fail within the first 3 years. So like if you let that statistic like live rent free in your mind, then it's going to actually become your reality. But you defining failure and like looking at things like that, they're just lessons. Most people have
Yeah,
been running their
everybody
brands for
fails.
10 to 15 years sometimes. Like I think even look at like Stanley Cups, right? We're not talking about merch, we're just talking about a brand. They
Hmm.
didn't, there's the last year and a half for them has been absolutely insane, where they pivoted from marketing to people that are travel, like campers and outdoorsy and all these things, and now you
Hmm.
have moms fighting over their shit in Target.
Yeah.
Like those are the things, like sometimes you identify your audience and you're like wrong,
Yeah.
like and so if they gave up and they're like this isn't working, then they wouldn't have had a crazy year where I think they were ultimately valuated at like $1 billion company.
Ooh.
And even like Rihanna and Fenty, and to what you were saying, I think as far as artists goes, like looking at your career as like the ultimate marketing tool to then branch yourself out into, if you really want to run a brand, it doesn't just have to be clothing either. It could be a
Mhm.
jewelry line. Drake had his candle line. There's all different
I
types
didn't know
of
Drake had a
things.
candle line.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's one too, like as far as branding goes, like he builds that outside of himself. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
you do that and you learn it as you go. And the back end and the foundation of things are very important, because there's always a saying that sales heals all, and ultimately that kind of works for a period of time. But then when you're trying to, you're playing with the big dogs, you want to go to retail, or you want to do all these different things with your brand, you got to really tighten that up, and care about stuff that unfortunately, most creatives don't want to care about,
Mm.
or it's a learning curve because they're obviously using the opposite side of the brain for the most part. But running the business side of it is what I personally think is one of my strengths, is kind of coming in and saying, okay, we need to lay a foundation now.
Yeah.
You've been pitching, or posting and marketing to your audience for some time now, but if you really want to turn this to a brand, we got to take some real important steps to get there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's all a lot. It's a process, and I think some people give up too early, or have an idea and then they can't get it out a few times, like, and then they quit.
Right.
um but yeah, so I hope I answered all of your questions there. I tried to unpack them brick by brick.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've touched on some really great points. Like something that just immediately comes to mind for me is how I don't think a lot of music artists consider themselves entrepreneurs, and they should,
A thousand
you know?
percent. That's all I say. It is like, especially if, even the tricky part about artists that's different than running a brand is you're the product, the business owner, and the main marketing source,
Hmm.
right? So you have to be talking to me. You're a huge driver for anything that you do or touch, regardless of if your brand is like not specifically your face all the time. There's a
Yeah,
significant difference, obviously. Like, YG, as an example,
right.
our collections would sell really well, but the moment that he put out his post, sales skyrocket, again, and people are paying attention to that. But making sure in general that you're covering all your bases aside from that is also important.
Mhm.
So yeah, entrepreneurship, you're that is literally being an artist in 2024.
Yeah.
And unless you're fortunate enough to have people around you that understand business, you kind of have to get out of your own way and like learn, what do I need to do as an entrepreneur? Because the same thing, it's really all the fundamentals that go into becoming a successful artist also goes into running a successful brand. The only difference is, like I said, the artist is also the product as well as, you know, everything.
Marketer, the
Yeah.
CEO, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So many things. And I think that we are in a time where like independence is the future. We have companies that can help with distribution, but the development, the marketing, and distribution were the main things that labels used to provide music artists, or what they would seek being signed to a label for. And now a lot of that stuff you're able to take on into your own hands. So I think it's really important for people like us to have these conversations so that music artists can think about everything that comes with being a musician, including the brand development and just simple things like, how do you even define or cultivate like your brand identity, or figuring that. I don't
Yeah.
even think music artists are thinking about that. They're thinking about the music.
Yeah.
They're like, I just want to make the music and I just want y'all to love me. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
Yeah. It's interesting though, because it's like, the merch or the brand, like everything becomes a walking billboard.
yeah.
So, you have to think of it that way. And
Mm-hmm.
also we're in the day and age where when people like absolutely like love you, they love your music, and then they want everything that you have, having a like strong, solid fan base almost like can be very cult like, and for a lot of artists it is,
Yeah.
and they'll do it all, and sometimes their merch just or their brand in general might not necessarily be as strong,
Mm-hmm.
where people you again build with that over time, the same way people want to see everything nowadays.
Yeah.
I understand where people want privacy and things like that, but it's the same thing with running a brand, is
Mm-hmm.
that you someone hang on one second. Oh, hey Red. I'm on a live right now. This is our security guard, Red. He's here.
Hey,
Um
security.
but I lost my train of thought there because I thought someone was breaking into the building.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, well,
Oh
normally all our doors are locked, so I had no idea that one was
Lord.
open.
Right. So you're like, who is coming up in
Yeah.
here?
But anyways, I think that where did I leave off at? Was showing people like the behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
um they want to see you packing orders, they want to see you just thinking about designs and involving them in the process. And even if you're in those early stages, if you're at the point where you can have a like what are the broadcast channels on Instagram or things like that.
Yeah.
You're building out, or we're currently doing some of that with my artist Chelsea, and starting to just cultivate who those people are,
Yeah.
because she's kind of in that phase of her development where like we know where her numbers at and people are fans, but what do they want to see from her, and like
Right.
connecting with them so that way when we do bring ultimately the brand she wants to do to market, we're
Mm-hmm.
able to like meet their needs. The biggest thing and just across the board is like in entrepreneurship is what need, are you meeting, and are you actually fulfilling that, or you like think you are.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the two, and identifying that is just really talking and getting to know, if you're an artist, who your fans are. And then you just take the steps to differentiate, okay, these types of designs, like I said, for example, I think that was one of the best things that they did for 400 and for like golfing, like all of those, like the brands that our artists run that have been very successful. If you look through the things that they've done well, it's differentiating. If I know I'm going to get Tyler the Creator merch, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
very specific to that. But if I'm going to get like golf merch, it's going to be completely in another space. And maybe that there's collabs or things like that that you do with both brands at some point,
Yeah.
but ultimately you want to differentiate between the two, so that way people feel, each one is a little bit more unique to them and like what they want.
Yeah. And I think that as business people, it makes sense to us to diversify your sources of income, to diversify your portfolio. So
Yeah.
even if you are selling merchandise, to have merch that is music specific, and then to have another brand where it's like, no, this is a clothing brand. This is something different than my normal merch. And I don't think a lot of artists think of that. I think a lot of artists are just like, let me get a fucking t-shirt made and I'll sell this
Yeah.
at my, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I would love for you to kind of talk about like leveraging merch for revenue growth, because some people might be watching this and be like, well, of course YG can sell merch, but it's like, no, I've worked with smaller artists who have exclusive limited drops and they sell out every time. You don't have to
Yeah.
be the biggest artist in the world. So,
No
I'd love for
facts.
you to kind of talk about that a little bit.
I think La Russell's a really good example of that. Of as far as like creating a brand and an image that is recognizable. But like for me personally, no, no disrespect to him, I don't listen to his music, but I'm well aware of his brand, what he's
Mhm.
trying to do overall from like an entrepreneurship and like outside of just like the music space. You do have to think of that as like you're building out like your own ecosystem, and it might not be a brand for some artists
Right.
too. Like you also can think of like um I don't know, like other artists like who are buying businesses and franchises and all of that sort of stuff, like, but outside of music essentially is like how are you monetizing what it is that is going to help you live a long time, success,
Mhm.
because at some point the music, not everyone is going to have a Drake career.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a 10-year run. And I don't mean that to be an asshole, but like if we're looking at the odds of artists that can actually even make a stable income off of their music alone,
Right.
you have to establish things outside of that.
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't, to me, the numbers, I don't get blown away by huge audiences, because followers don't equate to fans. And I think we all know that at a certain, now that wasn't always the case a couple years ago, but
Yeah.
your fans could be, if you have 100 solid people. Like there was this artist Johnny Polygon that one of my former clients toured with like 8 years ago now, and he dropped an album. Nipsey Hussle did something, really similar as well, is dropping $100 album and sold, as many copies as he could. And so that's where you're now creating like this demand and understanding who your audience is too, and people that are going to be willing to pay that high price point ticket item, and you're making a stable income.
Yeah.
Like Johnny had 8,000 followers at this point in time or so. And this was like 2014 to 2015, which was like obviously a different time in social media, but they knew, and his manager at the time, my friend Shelly, she knew and understood like these fans will do this, and this is how we're making our money. And
Yeah.
so let's make the most of it. So really, everyone's trying to go viral all the time
Yeah.
now. And even like the artist whose merch I run now, Doobie, um, he tours around the country. Like, I mean, he's got 1 million on YouTube, and that's his biggest social channel right now. But some people might be like, oh, he doesn't have 1 million on Instagram or 1 million on TikTok, and it's like, doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
Like, he's got a really strong fan base and audience that has connected to him through his music, and they will go with him where he goes for the rest of his career, and has also branched out to wherever, the people around him are now. The fans, like, they follow me too. I've only been around a year. Like, and so that's powerful, right? And like ultimately I think the biggest part is like I said, having like the understanding of what niche or like problem are you solving, and like
Mm.
that might be because you're talking about your depression, or you're talking about your relationship. You're putting that into a song, but that's solving somebody else's problem, right?
Right.
Um,
Providing
so
value. That's a
right.
big ticket word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody thinks like, oh, to provide value, I have to have educational content. And it's like, bro, no. Share your day in the life of like having a 9 to 5 and then also being a music artist. Share
Yeah.
your songwriting process. Like all of that is valuable. Or even
Yeah.
like, something I want to jump in with you is kind of discussing the process of developing and selling merch from like design, production to distribution. I would love if you could touch on that a little bit, just for any music artists who have never done that before,
Yeah.
and just the thought of merch sounds like scary and unrealistic and like I have to have $1 million, like,
Yeah.
so
No.
I would love
I
for you to talk
mean, fortunately, we're in the day and age where a lot of this stuff can be way simpler than it is.
Yeah.
I lost you. I don't know how. I have to kind of move around while we're chatting for the rest of this so I can get right out the door. But I put everything. I use Printful right now for Chelsea. Your margins aren't as great, and some of your design capabilities are also not as great.
Mhm.
However, it gets the job done, right? So if you don't want to put money up for inventory, and you don't want to do, you know, anything too crazy, you kind of just want to feel out who might buy something. And they have a lot of blanks that you could use. They have a lot of like hoodies, t-shirts, all of that stuff. Jackets, accessories, home items, like they have everything. Um, and I use that first. I'd say, so as far as you're thinking, I don't want to pay for inventory up front. I want to kind of feel out what my audience will even buy. I don't want to handle the fulfillment. They do that all for you. Um,
Nice.
um, sorry, multitasking girl. I'll put my camera around if I could figure it out. This is like Europe tour merch. Like, Doobie also was just in Europe. Unfortunately, all of this is our like little stock room here for Holy Sinner, Tainted Angel, and
Beautiful
then
stock.
Doobie's merch. Yeah. We do all of that stuff right now in house. Which hang on one second. I have to wait for someone's dropping off like our chip reader. So when she gets here, then you'll have everything and be able to go. You just put that in the truck. Yeah. They're not leaving his house till 4:30 ish. So you have some time. Yeah, she's like 18 minutes away. Or
Yeah.
was 18. She
So
might
I
be
know you
10
you
away.
only had 30 minutes to jump
Yeah.
on, so you gotta jump, no worries.
Yep. No, you're good now. Sorry, I just had to get him sorted really quick. I will have to hop off once she gets here so I can double check everything. So just a couple more minutes. I saw there were questions that came through. But
yeah, it's all like none of the comments or questions are loading on my end. So if you want to jump
okay. Yeah.
questions, yeah, feel free before you
Let
jump.
me go through. To round out as far as designs go, which I didn't answer in that, Fiverr, and like searching on Instagram, there's a lot of people that post their designs and sell them on here, and then they'll send you the files, and you could either modify them or work with them. My thing is like everything is Googleable nowadays. So just start to do your research. If you don't know how to do something, be resourceful enough to like find somebody else that might know how to do it. And you'd be surprised how cost effective certain things can be, especially when you're starting out. Shit, Canva, like I design artwork and shit. Like the
Yep, love
single
me
we
some
have a single dropping for Chelsea on Monday. I did her artwork myself in Canva. I've never learned like Illustrator and all of that fancy stuff yet, but I don't think someone said merch sounds so scary to me. It's not scary, girl. Or I think, girl, I can't see. My eyes are going blind. But it's not scary. It's definitely a thing to just be strategic with, and be smart. And like I said, I don't know if you were in the conversation earlier, like one of the best ways as far as like building shit out that you would actually like and wear, because you're ultimately going to be the one promoting it.
Right.
So that's like the biggest thing. If you don't like it, you're not going to want to promote it, and that comes through in like the things that you get marketed. We know when influencers or artists like don't like the shit that they're talking about. It's like
Yeah.
an energy thing. But yeah, that was that comment. There was another question I saw in here. I think it was something. Oh, should we show preparation for projects like the team meetings, studio sessions, etc.? Again, rule of thumb for me is share whatever you're open to sharing. The more, the merrier. People obviously want to know everything now, and I think ultimately, like, relatability wins across the board every time. So, you know, just what you're comfortable with sharing. Obviously, I think that there's still a level of privacy that's important to keeping your own sanity. But you know, everything is same for like running a brand. Like it's all across the board the same for your brand. Showing the people how you fucked up. You know, like showing the people, here's 100 tees I had printed and they're all not exactly how I wanted them at all, but fuck it. I'm gonna give them away for free. Like, again, thinking of fans as walking billboards, like you just have to be prepared between music and fashion to just like hear hella no's and take lots of L's until you finally get that one yes or that one win that like is like, okay, this was a nod in the right direction. It might not be one that blows you out the park out the gate, but it's something that keeps you on. And if this is your purpose, then keep like walking in that.
Yeah.
Um,
Take those L's as lessons, not as losses, because like
exactly.
you were saying earlier, every entrepreneur fails and it's okay. That's how you learn. But if you never
Yeah.
do and you never fail, then you
Yeah.
never learn and you
I
never grow.
mean, Light, who was in here earlier, like he always looks at our stock room that I just showed you guys, and he's like, this is my Amazon story. You know, like this is it. And so, um, be comfortable like being in that uncomfortable space, because it's not going to be fun and it's not going to be making you money like if you're not already established for a while.
Yeah.
um Everything needs to keep going back into the business, you know. And then the last question that I saw in here was any advice on how to build a strong fan base. um really connecting with your people, like we just talked about, as far as like, you know, um starting a broadcast channel, getting their emails, they're like getting them to sign up for some sort of text message marketing kit, like figuring out the ways to stay in contact with them. And then also like it, the super fans, right, are always going to be your bread and butter. So identifying who those people are as you grow and really like connecting with them. Like there's fans that will come and might be your only person in the show. When 10 years later you're playing in front of 1,000, 2,000, whatever people, that same fan is going to be right there, and guess what, you're going to remember their name, where you met them, and all those things. So like those little moments that feel not so big or great even to you are ones that make their whole world. So like, and they remember that forever, and that same person is gonna be the word of mouth marketer of the fucking year for you forever, because they're gonna tell everybody they know, listen to your music, put you, you know, and they're advocating for you, and that to me is like priceless. So identifying who those people are, you know, being respectful, treating them as the same way you would want to be treated, which is my overall like rule of thumb, period. And like there's a lot of artists that are disrespectful to their fans, and I don't like that. I mean, you know, they're not really engaging with them. We're in a different time and space where social media gives people access to you all the time. And so you have to be in some sort of headspace to engage with them, right? It can be overwhelming. Like one of my past clients, he used to get a lot of suicidal type of messages from fans, and those are really difficult to navigate. And that can be, you know, hard to do for sure. But if that's the type of music you make and those are the type of audiences too you're attracting, align yourself with organizations that like fit what you care about, and whether that's mental health or wellness or all those things, like connect them, you know, with people. And that's how you build a community, is like by sharing resources, talking to them, getting to know them. How did you hear my music? Like, and they don't want to hear from your manager. They don't want to
Right.
hear from whoever. They want to talk to
Managing
you.
your socials, right? They wanna really feel a connection with the real artist.
Yeah. And they don't get, I promise you, none of my, I love all the fans that fuck with me, but I know y'all don't give a fuck about meeting me. You want to meet whoever it is that I'm working with at the time, and that's cool, you know. But all right, girl, I'm going to have to hop off now.
Okay.
But anyone that wants to reach out, like, feel free to shoot me a DM. You're an angel. Thank you. DM me. My email is also in my bio. So whatever, I am always like happy to connect and answer questions if I can, or send you some resources, because I'm always a good advocate for figuring that shit out yourself. And I can tell you so much, but might waste my time doing that. You should be good to go. All right. Thanks, Ed. And yeah, so I think that's everything on my end.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your day. If you guys weren't able to watch the whole thing, don't worry. I'm gonna repost it next week on YouTube. And yeah, Jackie, I'll just get the video from you. If you want to send it via WeTransfer link, you can text it to me after this.
Yes. Oh wow, that filter made my eyes look crazy.
I know the filter keeps making you look like a vampire.
Wow, I don't even know how. Okay, I
You're like,
tapped
how
the
is
screen.
this
That's
coming?
why. Okay, so I'll save it. I haven't done this in so long, so
Yeah.
I'll save the video when we hang up. Post it to my
Or you
page, and
don't even
then.
have to do it in your
Oh, you
live.
don't? Okay.
No, yeah, it'll be in your live archive. So, I mean, people do that just because they're scared. They don't know if it's really going to be there. So if you you can post it, have it up for like 2 seconds, and then go to your live archive and download it from there.
Cool.
And just send it to me via WeTransfer.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Have a good weekend, babe.
You too.
Bye.